Welcome back, everybody, to the Success Partner podcast with Daya Naef. And today we have Bruce LaFetra coming in to talk to us. I'm so excited. I've known Bruce probably a little over a year, and he actually was a guest speaker at Lawyers Happy Hour. So I'm so happy to have him back now that we are doing the podcast. So we'll just jump in. We're just going to roll with it. And so Bruce, we know you as the client whisperer. That is very catchy. Can you tell us more about that?
So that actually came from a client of mine. And because the work that I do is rather than think about, Daya, who do you want to work with? Why are you successful? I go talk to your best clients, what I call your best clients, the ones you would clone if you could. And I talk to them. And there's almost always a secret sauce that comes out, something that you do that you don't think about. And so you don't talk about, but it's really important to the clients. And that becomes like client whispering. And so he started calling me the client whisperer, and I actually have to say it took me a long time before I bought into it, but it's been something that's very memorable.
I love it. It's very, very catchy. Kind of like my law firm co-pilot came out of a social event. Someone says, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, it's kind of like a co-pilot." And they go, "Ding!" And I was like, "Oh, wow, I can use that." Tell us a success story. Tell us something you found out about a client that you went back and used, and it worked out great.
So one particular was it's a mid-sized law firm, and there were various reasons that they kind of hit a plateau. Some of it was market, and some of it was internal dynamics. But they had a rainmaker that generated enough business that everyone was happy. Until he wanted to retire, and he thought, well, I'll sell my stake in this successful firm to my partners, and they got someone to value it, and it's like, well, if you're not here, the firm really isn't worth very much. He goes, oh crap, okay, you guys have to start generating business. You can't just be partners in name. And they did a lot of things over a couple of years. They did actual sales training, lawyers with sales training. So they were serious about this. They rebranded the firm, and nothing really happened. And at that point, I met them, and I asked, what are you trying to accomplish, as opposed to what do you want to do? And that was a very different question. And I ended up talking to a variety of their best clients, the ones that really, you get me. And it turns out what they had rebranded themselves as experts, because they really are. They know everything about, the space they're in. But what their clients really were looking for is, what questions do we need to ask? We know it's complicated. And so by bombarding them with answers, they were making it more difficult for their clients. And so they now think of themselves more as advisors. They're experts on the back end to actually do these things. But they sit down with the clients to understand what it is that the business owner, what are they trying to accomplish? And then they apply their legal expertise to that. And that actually had the effect of, it's much easier to sell that because it's what they actually do. And so now the firm, after 3 years, has 5 rainmakers instead of 1. And I have to say that managing partner stayed on a couple of years longer than he planned to, because he goes, I've never had so much freaking fun in all my life. They work with only best clients.
Mhm.
That are the firm is easy to manage because there's no client issues, because they're all people that they fit within the mold. They understand what they're getting. That's a great relationships, and he's making a ton of money.
That's fabulous. That is like a win-win success story all across the board. So wonderful. So how do you find these people, or how do you reach the people that need your services?
It The classic referral. I have yet to figure out what the Google search would be. Most of the time, I'm working with lawyers who they're not generating the business that they want or expect. Now they're not broken. So it's not that they're on the ropes or anything, but they just see that there's more. There's a vision that there's more there. But they're struggling to probably differentiate themselves, even though they have happy, maybe even ecstatic clients.
Mhm.
And what they really want is they want to have a smooth running engine that generates ready to hire clients. And a lot of times they overlook referrals. They get a handful of business from referrals, but that's actually an engine that most of them really haven't tapped in as fellow provisors. We can understand how powerful that can be for people. And ultimately, their success doesn't come from learning to do new things, which is you've got to be doing this, you got to be doing that. We focus on what it is, where they win, with whom they win and why they win with those people. And that's something you can actually scale pretty easily.
I love this with the why they win with these people. Like with the, I've been watching a little bit of the Olympics and watching the teamwork. And so we have like our most valuable players and we have our superstars, but like the people that are on the team with them, like they were doing some flashbacks from other Olympics past, and you can see how people have moved up and how it is actually a team. So even if it's one person is the star of the team, the whole team is poised to move up into the next spot by the next
Well,
Olympics.
and also think about sports teams. I'm a baseball fan, and oftentimes you get there's the superstar, and then there's the rest of the team. But some of the most successful teams, the Dodgers. I'm a Giants fan, so this is hard for me to say. But a few years ago, were really, really successful because they didn't really have any superstars at the time, but they had a lot of people that were flexible and contributed multiple ways, and they had a very good team. It's the last thing I'll say nice about the Dodgers, but
Actually, yeah, yeah. No, I don't follow sports too much, but I actually know the Dodgers reference from being like retold in several motivational and business books. So you have a very prestigious background as well. So an MBA from the Tuck School at Dartmouth. So um, now you are a consultant now, but like, what were some of your traditional paths, if you had any?
so a lot of my classmates went straight into consulting for big consulting firms and things like that, and I went and worked I've worked for companies that actually manufacture stuff. I've worked for services, financial services, other sorts of professional services. Then I kind of fell into consulting, and I really, really liked that because I get to solve problems all the time. And running a business is, it's solving problems, but it's doing a lot of other things on a daily basis as well. And I just really love the bit to be able to solve the problem and then move on to the next problem.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's a good question. So what is your length of engagement usually working with some of the law firms that you're working with?
It ranges from probably 3 to 4 months is probably typical.
Okay.
I work on a project, so I'm not in there to create a dependency on me. When I first did my first clients early on, I thought, well, I'll do the consulting thing. I'll go in, I'll help them out, give them some recommendations, get them going, and then I'll come back in a couple of years when they've kind of forgotten and gotten off the track. And I went back to my first clients and they were like, this is great. The more we do it, the easier it gets. We're like training all these people internally. And I go, oh, okay. Well, that's great. That's a great compliment for what I'm doing, but it's changed the business model a little bit. But I love and so many of my clients, like halfway through the process, because, I'll do interviews with their clients and come back with findings, and then we'll do the strategic, marketing plan. And about halfway through, once they've started to hear from their clients in their own words, it's like then a switch flipped. And sometimes it's exactly those words, but other times it's a similar thought. It's like, I knew this makes sense. You come with good, references and all that, but it was kind of counterintuitive. And suddenly they see it. And once they see it, they can't unsee it again. And so I had one older partner at a firm who was hadn't quite bought in yet. And we had done the strategic plan presentation. And he goes, so what you're telling me is this is all just basically common sense. And I go, well, Roger, that's exactly right. But you haven't been doing it for all these years. You've been very successful, but you've never articulated this way. He goes, that's a really good point. And he became actually a really big enforcer within the firm. He got there the hard way in some sense. He didn't, drink the Kool-Aid. He saw, he was resistant, and then he saw, wow, okay, this really does work. And it's built on stuff that we've actually done over the years that made us successful, but we didn't really recognize the impact.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
credible and actionable.
That's great. Now, Bruce, that's a true testament to your model because you don't know. I think it's like 70% of what you learn when you're working with someone goes out the window like immediately when they walk out the door. So it is a true
Unless you make them
testament.
money and then they remember it really
And
well.
they
Well,
remember.
and the other thing that kind of between the work that you and I do is I'm not a coach. If someone needs accountability, I'm going to send them to you or someone like you that does that. I'm working with people that they hold themselves accountable. I'm helping them see some things that they can't see on their own, at least initially. And the interviews that I do allow them to get past, I'm just a stupid consultant to, wow, these are people that they know really well. It's like, well, if Daya says that and Bob says that and Julie says that, I'll say, okay, maybe you're onto something, Bruce. And that's what makes it sticky. But it's a consulting role as opposed to a coaching role. So often I coexist with coaches.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And who is a good referral source for you? Like you mentioned, coming up with strategic marketing plans. Do marketing
Yeah.
people often bring you in?
The funny thing about marketing people is most of them, say, well, we do what you do. And so I will ask them about, well, we interview, clients too, and says, well, tell me about the interviews you do. And they'll say, oh yeah, people are really busy, and so we only have like maybe 10 minutes to talk to them. And I said, well, who are you talking to? Well, we want to talk to the decision maker. It's usually the marketing manager or whatever, but if we can get like a partner, that would be awesome. And I said, well, I'm spending an hour with the managing partner or the CEO of the firm. And they go, how do you do that? And I go, well, maybe we're not doing the same thing. Because a lot of the nuance that comes out deep after you peeled the onion back.
Mhm.
And so I'm able to get insights that they simply can't get. Now, I don't do the traditional marketing stuff. I don't do websites or content. What I do is make that much better by building a foundation, a strategic foundation of focus that can then be implemented. And so sometimes I'll have, my clients will then, work with a marketing agency, and sometimes they're, it's like, who's this Bruce guy? And then they go, wow, this like makes our job so much easier. We can make you so much more successful because we don't have to fall back on what everyone else does or other firms. We know what works for you. And when we all know in our lives, if you focus on a few things, you can usually do them much better than if you try to do a whole lot of things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Bruce. And then what do you do? I know we talked a little bit about you and I both love to see live music and have lived in musical venue areas. What would be your favorite concert that you've gone to recently?
So I don't really do. My wife doesn't like really loud stuff, so we do a lot of like acoustic stuff in the park. There's a brewery here that does a summer series, so we can go get something to drink, something to eat, and listen. So we tend to do outdoor kind of festival kinds of things,
Oh, that sounds delightful.
which
Yeah.
in Knoxville is an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, so definitely a good climate for enjoyment most year round. Wonderful. Well, how do people find you, Bruce? I want to make sure I get all that in the show notes, and of course, have you
Sure.
tell us.
So it's people that have worked with me or know me that is one way. LinkedIn is another way. I try to be fairly active on LinkedIn. I'm the only Bruce LaFetra in the world, so there's not a big long list of them on LinkedIn that you have to go through. Or my website, which is eastwoodstrategy.com. We haven't said it explicitly, but I try to share as much as I can because I'll tell you everything I do. I don't hold anything back. The trick becomes a lot of it is that credibility. I can tell you what to do because I've done it so many times, or 80% of what to do because I've done it so many times. But you're not going to believe me because, well, you're special, you're different, or I'm not an attorney. But being able to bring in those interviews of the people that you've worked with for years that you trust and they trust you and you know the impact that you've had, and then put it in their words, it creates a lot of credibility.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, Bruce. I'm going to have your contact information in the notes so people can link straight to your LinkedIn. And again, I'm Daya Naef with the Success Partner. This is the Success Partner podcast. And thank you all for listening. And until next time.
Thank you for having me.